In the winter of 2009, a woman was walking her dog along the edge of the desert in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It wasn't unusual. The desert stretches wide on the city's west side, quiet, empty, almost peaceful. But her dog stopped and started digging. At first, she thought it was an animal bone. There are plenty of those in the desert, but this one wasn't shaped right. It was too smooth, too curved. It was human. Police were called. The area was secured, and what they uncovered over the next few months would become one of the most disturbing unsolved serial cases in the American Southwest, because the bone wasn't alone. It was the first of 11 bodies, all buried in shallow graves, all within walking distance of each other, all in the same stretch of barren desert. The victims were women. Most had disappeared between 2003 and 2005. Most were living vulnerable lives, struggling with addiction, survival sex work, unstable housing, which meant when they vanished, it didn't always make headlines. That's something investigators would later acknowledge. The killer seemed to understand that. The burial site was located on the West Mesa, a wide sandy plateau overlooking the city. In daylight, it doesn't look like much, just dry brush, dust, wind. But at night, it becomes something else entirely. There are no streetlights, no houses nearby, no witnesses, just silence. And whoever buried those women knew that. What unsettled investigators most was the pattern. The graves were shallow, but deliberate. The bodies had been placed carefully, not dumped randomly. This wasn't panic. This was repetition. Someone returned to that exact stretch of desert again and again over a period of years, which raises an uncomfortable question. How does someone repeatedly bury bodies in the same place without being seen? The West Mesa sits near a growing residential development. In 2009, construction crews were actively building homes just yards away from the burial site. Bulldozers, trucks, workers, and yet the remains stayed hidden for years. It suggests the killer was familiar with the terrain, familiar with the lack of patrol, familiar with the slow expansion of the city, almost as if he understood how to operate just outside the edge of visibility. There were other disturbing consistencies. Most of the women had last been seen in similar areas of Albuquerque. Several had connections to the same motels and neighborhoods, but no direct witness ever came forward describing a single suspect. No vehicle was definitively tied to multiple disappearances. No DNA match publicly identified. It was as if the offender moved quietly, selecting victims who were less likely to trigger immediate, large-scale searches. Predatory patience. And then there's the timeline. The known disappearances clustered between 2003 and 2005. Then, suddenly, they stopped, at least in that burial ground, which leaves investigators with few possibilities. The killer was caught for something else. The killer moved, or the killer is still out there, but changed methods. Dormancy in serial crime is rare, but not unheard of. Sometimes life circumstances interrupt it. Marriage, relocation, incarceration for unrelated crimes, or simply aging. But stopping doesn't mean remorse. It means interruption. Another unsettling factor: the desert preserves secrets differently. Heat accelerates decomposition, sand shifts, wind erases footprints, evidence disappears quickly. If someone knew that, truly understood it, the desert becomes a tool, and tools suggest planning. For families, the hardest part wasn't just the discovery, it was the waiting. Years passed. No arrest, no public suspect, no courtroom answers, only press conferences promising continued investigation. Over a decade later, the case remains officially unsolved, which means whoever buried those 11 women has never been publicly identified. Imagine living in Albuquerque in 2004. You go to work, drive home, pass the West Mesa on your commute. Meanwhile, just beyond the road, someone is digging shallow graves in the dark, returning again and again, undetected. The scariest part isn't how remote the desert is, it's how close it was to everything. Neighborhoods, gas stations, schools, ordinary life. Some investigators have suggested the offender may have had a job that allowed flexible nighttime movement, possibly someone comfortable navigating isolated terrain. Someone methodical, patient, familiar with the city's margins, but without definitive forensic breakthroughs. Those are just theories, and theories don't close cases. Today, if you stand on the West Mesa at dusk, the city lights glow in the distance, cars move along highways, life continues. But beneath that sand lies the memory of 11 women who vanished without immediate answers. And somewhere, statistically speaking, there is a person who knows exactly what happened, who remembers the desert wind, who remembers the digging, who remembers choosing that exact stretch of land and who has never had to explain it. That's what makes this case different. Not just the number of victims, not just the burial ground, but the silence afterward. No taunting letters, no captured suspect, just a long stretch of desert that gave up its secret once and then went quiet again. If the person responsible was never caught, he could still be there, driving past the mesa, living in a neighborhood built near the graves, watching news updates, listening as the story slowly faded from national headlines, and knowing something no one else does. Because sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't the ones who brag. They're the ones who bury their secrets carefully and wait.